us during this amazing new session. I have with me Alita Lindell. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alita. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me, Charlene.
And Alita and I were just enjoying some wonderful technical difficulties. So if you're, using platforms like this, you have to realize that some things go exactly as planned and some can take a little bit of a detour. So if you're out there and you're enjoying the Omniverse City and the Optical Metaverse and you're having any technical difficulties, don't forget we have an amazing team. Look out for Princess. She'll be happy to help you. Alita, how are you today?
I'm so good. And technical difficulties, I mean, it wasn't the nice thing about it is that, you were so calm walking me through things on my Mac that I'm super appreciative.
And I'm going to pull up our visual that we wanted here of this beautiful Zen experience. And if you're out there and you have the, link, which I'll share here, you can, join me live in the Zen garden. And Alita, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, Charlene, I've spent the majority of my career doing, team development, person development. I currently work with executives doing a lot of coaching. My passions are neuroscience, epigenetics, and quantum physics. So I was super excited to be on here today. And the metaverse to me is almost like a whole another dimension that's being created. So I find it fascinating.
And, I know that your space is mental health and wellness. And, you've found a lot of bridges between your traditional skill set and technology. Talk to us a little bit about that traditional skill set and how you've developed it and how you've been using technology to kind of evolve your career.
Yeah. So for me, and this is my first avatar experience and getting to go through this process. So that's super fun. But one of the biggest things is, I was just on the TED X stage not that long ago. And so one of the things that I was really talking about is that whole mental health and well-being piece and explaining to people how their body actually functions. And I said, one of the main things that, always comes into the equation when I walk into a company or a corporation to work with people and teams is that you hear the word stress come up all the time on a regular basis. And so one of the things I've been doing is really just teaching people how to use their technology wisely to support their mental health and their mental well-being versus it having the opposite effect.
That's really awesome. And, I know we've talked a lot about the metaverse and AI and all of these different tools that, medical professionals, eye care professionals, consultants can use to start helping businesses to wrap their arms around not only technology, but how it can impact each of their individual employees. You've done a lot with human resource development and helping businesses to understand each individual employee's experience in the workforce. How do you see these tools assisting people in C-suite so that they can shape that experience for each individual?
So an individualized experience is really important and it's important for you to not consider like they say there is no I in team, right? They always talk about the we, and I pull people back and I say, yeah, it's like it is ultimately about the we, but you have to look at the individuals independently and you have to actually care about each one of them individually before they can come together and work cohesively as a team. So just working on that level with individuals one-on-one is really a key component because everybody has different challenges. And so, some of the things I teach on is like, neurolinguistics is a big part of what I do. So I really listen. I'm a really good listener. When I'm working with people, executives, leadership needs to learn to become more conscious. I tell people on a regular basis they need to learn how to train their brain as much as you would train your physical body. You need to be mindful to train your brain. and everybody, like I said, will have a different unique challenge. But one of the commonalities that comes up all the time is stress and anxiety. Those are two main focuses that people have, and those are word choices that people use on a regular basis. And that's one of the things I want to address and kind of share with anybody who's here with us today is if you happen to be a person or you're within a culture or an environment or an organization that uses the word stress on a regular basis, I always tell people one of the most simplistic things that you can do is you can take that word stress and you can transfer it and change your perspective and use the word challenge instead. And just that alone, when you say the word stress and people embody that word, it really doesn't feel good. It has an automatic impact on the physical body that's not good. And the reason why it does that is because our body has an amazing natural pharmacy. And so we get a chemical download in our body based off of what word choices we're using within our own mind. It's pretty
I love
fascinating.
natural pharmacy is a very good word. I've never heard anybody say that before, but yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Just in my own journey, I think that's so smart.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that's so easy to do. It's so simplistic, but if you just train, right? Literally train, catch yourself every time you use the word stress and replace it with the word challenge instead. The word challenge has also a dramatically different chemical effect on the physical body. So when we use the word challenge, we want to rise to the occasion. It makes us feel much better, right? It gets endorphins moving and everything functioning in the right direction. Versus if you use the word stress and you have cortisol and then you have anxiety that begins to, come up from all of that. And literally it's just your word choices and how you're training your mind and what you're focused on a regular basis. But it's super simple. You just have to be a little bit disciplined, catch yourself and correct your words. And it has an entirely different physical effect on the body.
Now, I'm here in the Omniverse city in the Zen Garden, and you didn't know this. I didn't know you when I came up with this concept, but I worked with my team to develop a space that could create these new ideas from business owners or just from consultants or leaders or content creators to create audiovisual experiences that would allow someone to say, okay, I want to create like, for instance, we're in a space right now with flowers and it looks very peaceful and there's a lot of white tones.
Yeah.
How could you see using spaces like this to really craft an experience that helps people to feel comfortable in these types of spaces?
Oh, I think that this is incredible. So the fact that you've done this, I only see this as like that's like a fetal stage of what the potential is for it, right? And so I think it's super exciting because when we look at a space like that, people can customize something for themselves that actually feels really good to them. I do think that I would be mindful in further creation and build out of this to make sure that they have selections of and options that are going to be, really paying attention to frequencies, especially if you're doing like meditation or anything like that you're going to have as a selection that's going to be a component of the room that they can create. But I think it's amazing because somebody could really go through and detail select a space that really is going to put them in the proper headspace and make them feel really good and get them super centered and super balanced. And you'll be able to do that not just through visuals, you'll be able to do it through audio as well. And you'll be able to have that immersive experience for more of a meditative state. So I think it's incredible.
That was the exact goal of this space. Now, this is all a template, but now somebody could create, you see, I'm going through different rooms. The goal is that as the person stands in the middle of the room, they would trigger that audiovisual experience and it would be different. One might be more intense, one might be more colorful.
Yes.
But you as the individual, you get to really articulate what your tolerances are. If you're creating a space to bring people together virtually, and maybe some people just simply can't tolerate. We learned months ago in our Performance Vision Summit that binocular vision could really create challenges for people, and certain audiovisual stimulus is going to be challenging for different individuals. So as you're crafting spaces for your brand, for your audience, or for your business, you really have to start collecting feedback from users on what they can tolerate, not even what they like, because in some cases they won't even be able to enjoy a space that you've created because of that. Talk about frequency and how you feel like we have to be mindful of using frequencies in these types of developments.
Yeah. So when it comes to frequency, right, I look at multiple different things. So I look at it from a brainwave pattern. And so brainwave frequencies and what we're able to reach and obtain, we're not, until we're at a certain level of consciousness, our frequencies, like we don't even have the ability. I always tell people, like, it's not until you're fully consciously aware that you have the ability to make new choices and new decisions. Yet Psychology Today and some of these other publications are saying that we're conscious only 5% of the time. So what I would do is I would really use this space mindfully. And I tell people, even like when you are listening to music, even, right? Or if you are listening to a meditation, it should not be an experience that takes you down and then brings you back up again. It's like, pay attention to what the frequencies make you feel like vibrationally, and what it makes you feel like physically when you're listening to either song choices or meditations. And, there's a lot of developers out there, and especially in the meditation space. And I tell people, don't, just because it's a meditation doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily crafted to get you to a higher state of being or get you where you really need to be, because it depends on the developer and how mindful they are while they're in the actual creation process. So, development in this space is really vitally important, because it's going to impact everything. And another fun fact is, like, Americans, the statistics say that Americans watch TV an average of 3 hours a day. Now, that doesn't even count computer screen time, right? Or time that we're spending on our phones. But one of the really fascinating things is that a TV, you'll always hear people say, oh, I just want to zone out, or I just want to check out, and I just want to go watch something on TV and just like let my mind, take a break. It's interesting because your TV set puts you in a brainwave pattern that's in a meditative state of being. And the findings have been that it actually occurs because of the pixels and the light that is coming through the TV set. So, it's things like that the majority of the populace doesn't even know. And yet it has such a dramatic impact.
Well, I definitely want to come back to that, because that tells me that there's some sort of information coming in through the visual system that's creating that state. And so I'm sure you can connect those dots much better than I could. But I want to talk to you first about environment. Obviously, a lot of people will say to somebody, oh, you want to calm down, change your environment. And if that's not an option for somebody physically, how do you feel being able to change your environment through spaces like this can help someone to really shape that visualization that helps them to start feeling better?
Oh, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. And the reason why I say that is because, and this is going to impact all ages, right? And so having that safe space and that really feel good space that's personalized, that's very unique to you, to your own individual needs and wants. I mean, if you think about that, right? So take that average of 3 hours a day on TV. What if somebody could spend 3 hours a day inside their own space, right? Cultivating their own internal peace and getting their brain and their entire body in the frequency levels that are going to be optimal for them to function in. Like, it's like, again, this would be like a training piece, right?
Oh my goodness. I never even thought about that. So now let's close the loop, because I'm hearing an opportunity for optometrists for sure. So let's talk first about that light connection. And I know that you're probably not well versed in the eye care space, but you're very versed in the vision space by some of the work that you've done in NLP and some of the other work that you've done that I'm not going to try to repeat because it's much more sophisticated than I understand. But you are very familiar with that whole neurodivergent visualization. First, before I start asking you these questions, talk about your qualifications here and some of the work you've done in vision and brain development.
Yeah. So when it comes to the whole brain development piece, I mean, everybody, I think it's really well known now that people understand how impactful visualization work is, right? And I mean, NASA has even done studies where they have taken people's brainwave frequencies. They've had their astronauts just run through and they've also taken athletes, right? And they have them run through a specific exercise in their mind, just in their mind, not physically doing the movements, but just running through it in their mind. And just by doing it and running through it in the mind, all of the physical characteristics, all of the things in the body still fire off as if they're doing it.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to Yeah, and I want to take us back to you said environment. And I really want to touch on that for a minute because again, this is super impactful. And it's impactful because of epigenetics. So epigenetics basically is now a more in-depth study science that's being developed. And what they're finding is they'll tell you like, oh, like you could have cancer potentially, right? Because your mom also had that gene, or it gets passed down. And what they're really finding now is that it doesn't so much have anything to do with anything physically within our body as much as it does the environment, that is the behaviors and the emotions that have been passed down from generation to generation. And that's what's causing a specific ailment within a certain section of the body.
Wow, that's pretty profound.
Yeah, and that can also impact from a visual and an optical aspect as well, right? So, so when it comes to the visual aspect of things, there's people, and not just people, the government has been doing studies for years. There's a gentleman by the name of Michael J. Lincoln. He's a PhD. He did a desk reference, and what he did is he worked with foster care children throughout their entire life. And so what they did is they mapped what the emotional and behavioral things were that these children were going through, and then they studied them throughout their entire life. And when they did that, they were able to then find a link between and commonalities between emotional and behavioral things that then impact people on a physical level with specific diseases or specific ailments.
Just absolutely insane. And going back to TV and pixels and all of that, and then talking about how instead of watching somebody else's patterns, you can create your own once you understand how you're responding to certain images and lighting and everything like that. That basically means that you could change the content that you're consuming visually that would then potentially change a lot of things about you from a wellness standpoint. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. 1,000%. So it's massive. And it's really about, as people get educated around the fact that this is the potential, right? And that this is how our physical systems work, then you're absolutely correct. Like, it gives us so much more empowerment and puts us in a place of being so much more in charge of, again, training our brains so that we're making conscious decisions and we're not just mindlessly repeating or allowing our mind to basically run in subconscious function and just repeat programs, the same programs over and over and over again out of habit.
I really appreciate your insight here, Alita. It's incredible. And I know that, you are a traditional, just what you do, you're very traditional at it. It's not like you've been really immersed in metaverse or AI or XR, VR, AR. You've just, as an expert in your industry, you still have many years left in your career. You've positioned yourself to be at the front lines so that you can embrace these technologies as they emerge. You mentioned you were a TEDx speaker, and you do meet a lot. I'm in a lot of the same circles with you, so you and I kind of meet the same people. Talk about some of the innovations you're seeing, and give people a peek into the future based on what you've seen already.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I tell people is you can start with something as simplistic when it comes to technology as just being mindful of your own news feeds and pay attention to your news feeds and what's bubbling up in your algorithms. Because when you look at your algorithms, essentially, oftentimes it's going to continue to repeat back to us anything that we've applied focus to, right? So whatever I've clicked on, whether it be positive information or negative information, this gives the world an opportunity to really look at your news feed. Is it primarily negative information that's coming back at you, or is it positive information? And so one of the things I said on the TEDx stage is I said, this is an opportunity to empower yourself. If you're primarily a negative thinker, you can click on one positive educational piece of information every single day and gradually over time completely change your algorithm, which in effect will completely change who you are.
That's incredible. And go ahead, finish. I'm listening.
I said, bless you.
Oh, thank you. Well, when we started building out the experience for this event, we started seeing people coming from all over the world, all different segments. And we had a concern that maybe people would get mixed together and not have enough in common. So we created this AI matchmaking system that did exactly what you're saying, but in reverse. So rather than you kind of waiting for your algorithms to show you what you're interested in, we basically let people trigger their own algorithms by, choosing tags and words and adventures and all these words that we're using. These are actually ways for you to shape your own experience and know, okay, if I opt into AI and gamification, I'm going to be shown AI and gamification things. And I want that. And it makes networking so much more efficient because you're meeting people that are at that same level that you are. Let's talk a little bit about, we talked about the, age gap years ago when baby boomers started passing the torch to millennials, but there's so many new gaps now. There's technology gaps, metaverse gaps, AI gaps. Talk about these new, I don't even know what to call them, environmental and technology gaps that are going to be things that we have to be mindful of as we're creating inclusivity in life.
Yeah, there's multiple layers to that. And again, that's why I'm always speaking to conscious leadership and really people learning to become more consciously aware and fully in control of their own mind. So when we're conscious, like I said, we get to make new choices and new decisions for ourselves, right? So as technology continues to advance, we need to also be advancing in our ability to be consciously aware. And we need to be really mindful as developers to develop consciously. And when I say that, I mean, when you're developing, these developments are going to impact the world in such a huge way. And it's also going to impact all age groups in a huge way. There might be some people who don't adapt to this, but they're not the generations who are touching technology right now. Anybody who is a generation who has grown up on technology and is fully functioning with technology, these things and these spaces in particular are going to have a huge impact, both from a business perspective, right? I see this being a huge funnel and way of business moving forward into the future. People are going to want to be having these type of experiences more and more and more. This is just a growing market and a growing segment and arena. And so as that continues to push forward, we really should be choosing to work with the people who are really consciously developing. And what do I mean by that? I mean, really paying attention to the choices and the decisions about everything that you're using and doing to create your platform. And I know that you and I have talked about that. And that's one of the huge appreciations I have for you and everything that you're creating, Charlene, is that you're always thinking ahead and you're always thinking about, your clients and the end user, the end user aspect of things and how it's going to impact people, and you think about those things on a really in-depth level, which I commend you for, because there's a lot of people who are just going and they're just creating, and they're creating because they can, but they're not putting a whole lot of thought into how it's going to impact the future.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point. So we're all innovators, right? If you're here today, you're an innovator. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I've seen most of you that are in this session, and a lot of you that'll watch the YouTube later. If you're coming to an event like this, you're an innovator. You're either innovating your life, you're innovating a process, you're innovating technology, but you're not going to be on the back end of innovation. And that's a very dangerous place to be right now. But you're either innovating to disrupt or you're innovating to facilitate. And when you're innovating to facilitate, you have to get a lot more human and a lot more empathetic and a lot more nose to nose with the people that you're innovating for. You work with a lot of like high functioning individuals that are probably for the first time in their lives in a point where they know they're not the leaders in their field of expertise, because the tools to become a leader are out of grasp for even a lot of traditional leaders. Talk about that fear factor and that level of discomfort that a lot of super professionals have had going through this shift.
Yeah. And it's going to continue to be that way, right? And so again, that's why I really speak to people, and I'm like, you can embrace that. No matter what, this has to be embraced. And technology needs to be fully accepted, because it's not going away. It's continuing to advance, and the disruption is already here. So to sit down and be afraid of it at this point, or be afraid of how it's going to impact, say, like, let's use the latest AI, and people are like, wow, this is going to like eliminate a lot of jobs. The thing is that if you're in that job, right, you're still, the human factor still is going to play a huge part and is absolutely necessary. And so if you want to be a leader within any segment or any section of your career or your industry, then this is something where you just have to really start to embrace. You have to adapt. You have to grow, right? People will resist change, but those who are resisting change are typically not the leaders. Like, most leaders fully embrace and understand the world is always changing. Nothing ever stays the same. And I use an example when I'm talking to people. I'm like, think about the beach. Like, if you're walking along the beach, like every single wave that comes in and goes back out again, it's a different beach. It never leaves behind the same beach. Our lives are exactly the same way. Every aspect of our lives, our physical bodies, all of it. We're always changing from one moment to the next. We just don't realize it.
That's a really good point that I don't think we make often enough. Leadership is not something that you should ever take for granted. I mean, there was once a leader at Blockbuster. There was once a leader at Toys R Us. I mean, these are not the leaders of movies and toys anymore. So I think if you are a leader today and you're listening to this, understand that that's something that you should never take for granted. Smart people, hungry, driven, motivated people are going to look at this moment in history and take the tools that are provided and assume leadership if they're given a chance. And if you're somebody, and I met an optician today, she worked for a company that got acquired, and she decided to resign and build her own future. And now she's going to become a leader in mobile opticianry. But,
Right.
She wasn't in that position of leadership before. She took that position of leadership. I think there's going to be a lot more leaders emerging, and that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to encourage and inspire, and why we built these tools. But talk about that new opportunity, Alita, for everyone to be a leader now.
Yeah, and the thing is again, you're right. There's going to be a tremendous amount of like a forefront. I see it as of leadership that's going to come through and start funneling through people who are starting to wake up, and they understand they can take control of their own future, their own happiness, and that also will have an impact on anybody that they lead, right, moving forward. But in this particular arena that we're talking about, in this industry in particular, of just like developers and designers and creators and people who are doing things similar to what you're doing, it's a game changer. And those who are skilled in any of these crafts or any of these sectors and who are coming out on the forefront in this capacity right now, it's inevitable. Like you said, they're going to be leading. They are it right now, So it gives people an opportunity globally to even the playing field as I see it. As long as people have access to technology and to the ability to be able to have access to technology, it's a game changer right now out there, globally. We thought the internet was big. Look out. This is
Seriously.
a whole new, literally a whole new dimension.
So talking about dialing in your vision, if somebody's listening and they're a business owner, they're probably thinking, dude, I'm still trying to figure out the whole email thing. And now you want me to get involved in the metaverse. Like, how on earth do I even begin to wrap my brain around this? I've been on your website. I've seen some of your testimonials. You've worked with some pretty incredible leaders.
Mm-hmm.
How does a leader who's listening to this, who wants to work with you and, get some insights on how to navigate this new frontier, how do they get in touch with you?
The website is usually the best way to access me. And there's an opportunity on the website. So it's www and it's .ask. That's ASK, Alida, AILEDA, .com. And I do free 30-minute consultations on there. And I tell people, please come with a list of questions because a lot can be uncovered within 30 minutes. And as long as somebody is really prepared with a list of questions of things that they would like to get answers to, they can really maximize that 30-minute time frame and really learn a lot.
So let's do a quick, and I'm going to put you on the spot for this one, but let's do a quick gap analysis audit. What are 3 things that a business owner or a leader can look at to see if they're leaving themselves vulnerable to gaps?
So from an operational standpoint, really, so when I look at this, one of the number one things is your systems, right? So when I go in, it's always tells me quickly what's happening. So I have merger and acquisition experience. And so when I go into a location, I'll ask for certain numbers, right? And P&L statistics and what reports they have. And oftentimes I'll get crazy information. I'll look at the numbers and I'll be like, why is this spiked here, right? Or why is there this huge fluctuation in the numbers between days or between whatever? And oftentimes you'll find that it's user error. So we don't even have clean reports. And so that's one major gap, right? So training and development of your teams and your people is huge. It's really essential. And making sure that you're onboarding and doing those kind of things consistently. So I would say training, I would say your financial numbers, right? And that are going to be some of the biggest impacts that you are going to be making within your organization. And then your technology, right? And that whole phase of how well are your people trained? And not only that, but cybersecurity, right? So I would say those are the 3 biggest things that I would be looking at right now as a functioning and business owner, in any industry, is what do my financials look like? Let's evaluate, should I address cash flow? Should I be moving and pivoting my cash flow and using it differently? Should I be cutting expenses in one place and then putting that capital to work for me in other ways? That's one of the things, right? The training and the development and onboarding of your people, because we know that, we just went through the Great Resignation. I mean, so again, when we talk about leaders that are going to come forth, think about the Great Resignation, all these people who have gone out and started their own thing. So this is, again, unlike any time we've ever seen before in life.
I could not agree with you more. And I got news for you. When I peeled open the seal of the metaverse, it was accidental. I when I find a new rabbit hole, I explore it to the bottom. Haven't found the bottom of this one yet. And I'm pretty inquisitive and I'm a pretty fast explorer. And I got to tell you, this is definitely not a time to stay in your box. Like, seriously, you better burn that box for good, because we're going on an adventure, whether you like it or not. You're either going to be like trailing end and lost in the woods looking for somebody to help you forage for food, or you're going to be Tarzan swinging, woo!
That's so correct. It's 100% true. And, when I said the Great Resignation, I said that because I was talking about the onboarding process and the training of your teams, right? If people were onboarded properly and they were actually treated with the compassion and the care as from the stance of being the individual that they are, then we wouldn't have had that mass fallout. And so it's a new generation of leaders that are coming through, a whole new way of looking at leadership than we've ever looked at it before. And that absolutely is vital and has to be done. Otherwise, the places where we do need the human connection, we do need these awesome, amazing people, they're not going to be there. They're going to be doing something entirely different.
And closing on that note, what I love is, just so you know, this entire event's been unscripted. None of us met even before to plan what we were going to say. We just literally went off the cuff. We've done 3 straight days
That's so incredible,
of unscripted live streaming, okay? And I must have heard this word a dozen times, and it's one of my favorite words, and it's not a word that I told anyone we wanted to focus on as a keyword, and it's not a word you typically hear. Certainly not a word you expect to hear at a Metaverse event, and that word is human. We are all human. And we are not going to stop being human because we have technology, including artificial intelligence. We're going to still be human. And the more you embrace humanity and use these tools to really learn new ways to be empathetic and kind and just, push yourself. And, the tools can change as much as they want. We all have choices to stay connected to our own personal humanity and to other humans. And I strongly believe that the metaverse provides a new opportunity to pull away from social media, which can be as disconnecting as it can be connecting, and begin embracing humanity and connecting with people in ways that are transformative beyond our wildest imaginations.
1000%. That's what makes this period and time so incredibly exciting. And because with this technology and with the things that they're coming and on the future, right, on the horizon, this is like a time where things can change at the speed of light. Literally can change that fast overnight, right? AI just proved that to us. That's not stopping. So we can come into more of a really healthy, well-balanced world state of being and conscious awareness as an overall humanity through these amazing tools and things that are being created. So I'm like, you know how I am. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this.
Well, if any of you are interested in connecting with Alita, she'll be floating around today and she'll be back, and she's going to be coming into the metaverse to help us tackle mental wellness and health and wellness. So thank you, Alita, for taking this first step on this exciting journey with me.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Thank you so much for having me, and everybody who joined us for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
We'll see you guys